It's 1:30. I'd like to call the September 17, 2018 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Commissioner Clare? Here. Commissioner Littlefield?
Present.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Hale is not available today. Commissioner Schuline?
Here.
Commissioner Miller? Here. Commissioner George?
Here.
And Commissioner Milner?
Here.
I'd like to have a motion concerning the minutes of the August 20th, 2018 meeting.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Milner. Do we have any talk about the minutes? We have a motion from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Milner, to approve the minutes of August 20th, 2018. Votes, please. Okay. Item is approved. All right. License and taxi record services will be next month. We go to the consent docket. Is there anybody here wanting to speak against an item on the consent docket? We have one person that filled this out. Were you speaking for it? Okay, very good. So we have nobody here to speak against the consent docket. Do we have any staff input on the consent docket?
No, everything on the docket's been recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 4, the consent docket?
I'll move for approval.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Clare. Do we have any talk about the items on the consent docket? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent docket by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Clare. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Okay, we now go to item 5, items for individual consideration. Frank Lee Reed, President, Brighton Point Property Owners Association, to consider a request for the addition of stop control on Riley Drive at Southwest 46th Place. Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, sir, if you could, is this your form here, Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Frank Lee Reed. Address is 8704 Southwest 44th Circle, Oklahoma City, 73179. I serve as the president of the Brighton Point Property Owners Association, and on the intersection of Riley Drive and Southwest 46th Place is a T intersection, but it is over close to the park that is on Caleb Street and 46th Place. When Roush Coleman built the addition, they put the park over there, and the community feels that they should have put a stop sign at Riley Drive. Approximately, I think, a year and a half or so, we asked the city for yield signs on each of the intersections within the community, but we left Riley Drive and 46th Place open because the community wanted a stop sign there. It was reported to our board meetings on several occasions that the neighbors around there observe a lot of the drivers just fly by that intersection. They report high rates of speed. I have read in the analysis that, the highest speed recorded was about 24 miles an hour. Whether or not them seeing the devices used on that day influence their speed is of question, but regardless, sometimes people's visual sight and estimation of speed, that's neither here nor there, but we do have a lot of children in the neighborhood that play at that park, and we're always worried about it. The report reported that there's been no accidents reported at that intersection, but I don't think that should be the overriding factor, and the report did leave it to the discretion of the Traffic Commission. I would urge the Traffic Commission to vote yes. One, because the canvas area did overwhelmingly support the stop sign by 100%, but I also went above the 300 feet by canvassing the entire street, and we only have one person on that entire street who disagreed with the stop sign, and he only disagreed just because he didn't want to participate. It wasn't for any other reason than that. So I would urge the Traffic Commission to approve the stop sign. Other communities have stop signs within their community, and for that reason, I would ask for a supporting vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else want to speak on item 5A? Staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. Jumping to page 3 under the recommendations, we note that we reviewed the intersection with respect to the city's stop control criteria and found that it does meet the city's minimum traffic entering threshold volume for considering the use of one-way stop control. This particular criteria establishes a minimum entering volume of 1,250 vehicles per day. In this particular case, if you would refer to the cover sheet on your report, you will note that Riley Drive carries a lower traffic volume than Southwest 46th Place. Guidance in the MUTCD notes that stopper yield control should not be installed on a higher volume approach. So in this particular case, the use of stop control on Riley Drive would be more appropriate. Since it is a relatively low volume intersection, there are no collision history, action on this matter will be at the discretion of the Commission.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Move approval of the application.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion? Okay. We have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Votes, please. Okay. Item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5B. Renee Alvarado Porter, President and CEO, Cristo Rey OKC Catholic High School, to consider requests from the high school to establish a school zone where flashing warning signals on North Portland Avenue from Northwest 10th Street to Black Gold Drive for the high school located at 900 North Portland Avenue. Anybody here speak on this item? Ma'am? If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, for reviewing and hearing our requests today. My name is Renee Alvarado Porter. I'm the President and CEO of Cristo Rey Oklahoma City Catholic High School. We are a brand new high school that opened on August 10th. We are co-located on the campus of OSU OKC very uniquely. Our high school is here primarily to serve the mission to make a college preparatory private Catholic education affordable to families who otherwise couldn't access that type of education. The way that we do that and it becomes affordable is that every one of our students goes to work 1 day a week at one of our corporate partners for all 4 years of high school. They earn their way to success. We have 100% college acceptance at our 35 other Catholic high schools across the United States. It's a 22-year-old proven model. We are the only Cristo Rey school, very uniquely, that's co-located on a college campus. And so for first-generation college goers, our location and presence on that campus is very significant and very important for our students to see what that looks like and to aspire to already degree-seeking opportunities. It presents itself as well with some uniquenesses for the Commission's consideration in that we are on a higher university campus that otherwise normally does not have the opportunity to seek out a school zone. Our parents and families do get their students to and from our school, not unlike a public charter or another private school. However, we do have, because of the nature of our student population, we do have students who are taking the bus. The Embark station is the Embark stop is located on 10th and Portland. We do have some students who are walking to and from that stop as well. And then, of course, as was indicated in the report, there is residential across from us. Moreover, though, is because our families are dropping their students to and from, and the nature of the speed limit on Portland, the traffic, the UPS, the folks that travel and go up and down northbound and southbound Portland Avenue it is dangerous as well for our families to be exiting the campus and to get out onto northbound Portland from where we are designated, and they are designated to exit the campus for us. I have someone else with me, actually the head of security from OSU OKC, who can as well speak on behalf. They've made some modifications on campus to our drop-off and pickup line as well to try to adjust and to make modifications for us to address the safety concerns also. And I'm happy to answer any questions, of course, that any of the commission has.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item? Yeah, come on up, sir. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Darvin Gore, and like Rhonda said, I am the Director of Safety and Security at OSU OKC. Since Cristo Rey has been on the university, I know we've had this year alone at least 3 wrecks out there on Portland during that time frame, and we've actually had to hire 6 OCPD officers, led up by Lieutenant Bratcher, to do traffic out there. It's just become so dangerous for our guys to be out there that we've gone to trying to get as much help from the city as possible with that. We've altered routes trying to get the students in and out more safely, but with that speed limit as it is, we have a one-way going onto Portland, and by the time they get on there, if somebody's not out there to do traffic in the mornings or in the evenings like the OCPD has done, it just, you see wrecks almost on a daily basis out there. So I think that this is a good thing for Cristo Rey and for the students as well. So that's pretty much what I have.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else on item 5B? Okay, staff?
All right, well, you've got our comments before you. In the recommendations section, I'll just kind of go through our summarizing that. So in the absence of school age or other pedestrian crossing activity related to this school's operation and or a school crossing guard in the immediate vicinity of the Cristo Rey OKC Catholic School, staff doesn't have cause to recommend the addition of a school zone on Portland Avenue at this location. The appropriate use of a school zone on an arterial roadway is to reduce traffic speeds in areas where school-age pedestrians, who are the most inexperienced and vulnerable group of all roadway users, are likely to cross the street on their way to school to go to and from school. The practice of reducing speed limits at such locations is especially important where a crossing guard is present. The ability for a school crossing guard to interrupt the movement of the traffic stream traveling at 25 miles per hour is inherently safer for all parties concerned than interrupting the flow of traffic traveling at higher speeds. As is noted in the previous section on the summary, the Commission has considered a number of other requests over the years for schools where that's had desired zones next to their facilities, but in those instances where there was no observed pedestrian activity to justify the use of a school zone, I think, staff didn't recommend approval, and there have been several instances where the Commission has not approved it simply because there is no pedestrian activity to slow traffic for that reason. Reducing the limit that's been requested is a half-mile long, which is probably an extraordinary length for given most school zones. Typically, if we recommend one, it's usually considerably shorter. That allows traffic to start slowing on approach to the school's property and then well in advance of any identified crossing locations. So at this time, staff does not have cause to recommend the use of a school zone as requested on Portland Avenue. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
I have a question.
Okay, yes, sir.
It was intriguing to hear that the Oklahoma City Police Department is directing traffic in the morning and in the afternoon in that location. Is that true?
Sir, do you know? I don't have any specific knowledge about that, other than, he mentioned Lieutenant Bratcher. It would not be uncommon for somebody to reach out to Lieutenant Matt Bratcher to set up off-duty employment to do some directing of traffic for school-related issues or any traffic-related issues. That would not be uncommon.
So that's they're paying off-duty officers to direct?
Yes, sir. It would be off-duty officers that are paid by OSU OKC or the school, I'm not sure which, to basically handle the direction of traffic. He mentioned there were 6 officers there. Is that correct? That would be a significant number of officers to slow traffic, direct traffic, probably use of some cones or other traffic control devices out there, as well as patrol cars.
Okay, that was the nature of my question, is whether it was privately funded or publicly funded.
So now, ma'am, for a point of order, can a motion be made to make this a smaller school zone than what was requested?
Yes, you can modify the request as much as you'd like.
Okay.
But it would have to be with the consent of the applicant.
Well, of course. Very good. And then, ma'am, if I could ask you one question just to clear some things up here. Right now, there's no student drivers because you're only talking freshmen, correct?
Correct, and
So you are projected in the future, like you said, next year, sophomore class, they start driving, then of course junior, senior, another 2-3 years down the way. Are you expecting to have then student drivers coming into the area?
yes. And so today, yes, we do have 123 freshmen who make up and comprise our founding freshman class. Those students will grade up, and we will introduce a new class of 123 to 128 freshmen again, until at 4/21/22, we will be at full capacity of over 500 students. So yes, as they grade up, I had a young lady when she came through I saw her in our food line today, and she was like, worked on my car this weekend, and I went, really?
So that's just
But
going to
yes,
add extra
they are-
drive-in?
Yes, we've had that discussion already, even this early with the university, about parking a dedicated lot there between actually the police training center and our building, which is directly north of it, to accommodate student drivers as well. So, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that's all the actual clarifications that I have. Anybody else have any clarifications that they would like to have?
Oh, yeah, I have a question. Is staff aware of Public Works having any sidewalk improvement projects on Portland?
Without having a bond program list or anything else, I couldn't answer your question. We can find the information for you, but I just don't have that available for this meeting.
Okay, very good. Sir?
Yeah, I just had a question about the students attending the school, if you don't mind. There are some neighborhoods in there. Do you have students coming from these neighborhoods?
We have
Or
students
would you
who...
have any way to project if you would in the future?
So our mission is exclusively to serve a low-income population, and for us this year, our average family income for a family of 4 is $39,400. Tuition for the families is set on a sliding scale for them. We do have students actually coming from 5 counties, so there is not a geographical constraint for a family. It is merely if they identify Cristo Rey to be a great option for their student, they can get them to the school, and, they're going to meet our mission, and they can come to the school. We are recruiting. We do have students who do come from Putnam City, Oklahoma City Public Schools, Mayfield, the surrounding neighborhood. Of course, that's one of the reasons why it was also very attractive for us to be co-located with OSU OKC, is because the neighborhood and the demographics and the census data that presents itself for the neighborhood mirrors the population that we would serve our student body.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So just for clarification, I just want to make sure I understand this. You're saying staff didn't observe any school-age pedestrian crossing street. Is that how?
That's correct.
That reading that study?
Yeah,
so someone from staff goes out there for a period of time and observes.
That's correct, based on the school's published hours, which would be, so it gave us the opportunity to observe when people might be walking to school and then leaving school in the afternoon.
Okay.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Principal, are students allowed to go off campus for lunch?
No, not today. No, it's closed campus.
But in the future, will your juniors and seniors
perhaps?
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah,
Maybe.
that's still to be determined. Right, no,
It's
that's
a
fine.
little
Right.
down the road for us, yes. And to your point, if I may, I would be open to modifying the proposal as presented if it, to shorten up the proposed school zone as reflected in the graphic above.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other clarification questions on item 5B before we go to a motion? Okay. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Excuse me. How many students do you have that cross? You mentioned you have some that cross. Have you identified them? Can you give us a number? Are you sure, or are you?
It's, the majority of our students are driven or carpool to school.
Well, I understand that.
We do have a handful, I would say half a dozen perhaps, that come. I know we have several students who do utilize they utilize the Embark. They take the bus to get to the school. And again, the stop is there at the on-queue at 10th and Portland.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, if you could click his yes off there. Great, okay. All right, any other clarification questions? Okay, I'd like to call for a motion concerning item 5B, please. You have another question, sir?
I'd just like to get
Okay.
clarification on
No,
what
we have another question. All right, come on up,
Oh,
ma'am.
sorry. You said you're amenable to reducing the size of the schools. Do you have is there a cross street that you think would be appropriate on the south end or on the north end as well? Or?
Well, our families today, to access the parking lot, and it is noted on the graphic that's there, they enter on Jerry Carroll, which is the street immediately north of the police training center. So something maybe perhaps I would throw out halfway between Jerry Carroll and Black Gold, something that at least gets folks to adjust their speed as they are traveling. And then, is it Bennett? Is that there's a street not marked on there. It's on the north side of us, Bennett. That's an east and west. It's a east entrance into the campus as well. And so perhaps that might be a good space. It is north of us a bit.
So you're saying from Bennett to Jerry Carroll?
Bennett on the north side to a little bit south of Jerry Carroll. And I don't know what the, do you know, Mr. Gore, what the street between Black Gold, or is that closed because that's training? Then it goes straight to Black Gold? Oh, okay. What's south of Jerry? Just Black Gold? Okay. The street that I'm looking at is police training and fire training route that's up there. So somewhere perhaps to start it, if it doesn't have to start truly at an intersection, okay. Does it have to do that? No?
No, it could go just on a distance from the intersection.
This is what I'm looking at. Okay. So somewhere kind of splitting the difference between Jerry Carroll and Black Gold.
Okay, and then north, is it all the way up to 9th Street? Is that kind of what you're thinking, or?
9th Street, I think, is generally across and on the west side across from Bennett. So, oh, there it is. Yes. Somewhere around 9th Street, perhaps a little. Bennett is on the east side of the road, and north of us, it is a main entrance into the campus.
Okay. Okay, very good. Do you understand now? Okay.
Question.
All right, another question? Go ahead.
Will this include a crosswalk?
There's been no request for that. The only place that the applicant seems to indicate where people might cross might be up towards an Embark bus station, which is on 10th Street on the west side of Portland. So a reduced size zone in this area, I think would facilitate anything up by 10th and Portland. However, 10th and Portland does have full pedestrian signals available.
Okay, any other questions on 5B? Okay, now we're looking for a motion concerning item 5B.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to establish a school zone for the Cristo Rey OKC Catholic School, roughly extending from Bennett to Jerry Carroll, and we'll leave it up to the staff to kind of determine the appropriate, that's okay, where it should be, if it's approved, that is.
Okay, well, let me just ask here, And Counselor, can we go with just that general ballpark and let the staff come up with an exact number?
You have the parameters. You have a north boundary and a south boundary. So unless staff has an issue with that direction,
Well, in
it would be
listening to the discussion, it appeared, listening to the applicant, that they would be willing to amend their request to go from point about midway between Black Gold and Jerry Carroll at the south end, and if I heard correctly, they were looking at maybe Northwest 9th Street for the northern limit of the zone. That was my understanding.
So that's what the motion would be then. Okay? All right, so the motion from Commissioner Schuline is to approve item 5B with a modification on the actual start and end points to a point south of Jerry Carroll, in between Jerry Carroll and Black Gold, and then north up by Northwest 9th Street. Okay, so that's the motion.
Second.
And we have a second by Commissioner George. And just to clarify, the councilor's concern, as the applicant, you're fine with that distance? Yes. Okay. Do we have any talk on item 5B? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner George, to approve item 5B as modified with the start and stop points of the school zone being somewhere between Jerry Carroll and Black Gold Drive and up by Northwest 9th Street. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5C, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E. Johnson & Associates, to consider request to 1, change the speed limit on North Chartel Avenue between Northwest 13th Street and Northwest 23rd Street from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, and 2, change the speed limit on North Robinson Avenue between Northwest 13th Street and Northwest 23rd Street from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Sir, if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Caleb Morgan with Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan. We appreciate you hearing this item, and we appreciate working with staff on this. As you know, there's a long saga of reducing, doing traffic calming devices in the area. This is just the latest installment, and it was heard last month, and there were some issues with the school zone signals in the area, and the applicant didn't want to proceed if it would remove the school zones, and staff worked with Public Works and was able to get a policy change on that so that those signals would not be removed if the speed limit is reduced. And so that's where we stand today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5C? Yes, sir. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Bill Carey. I live at 326 Northwest 16th, and I'm president of the Heritage Hills Neighborhood Association. And this is part of a plan that we did in conjunction with Heritage Hills East and Mesty Park. Just another installment. We're going to keep working at it. Anyway, without getting into what we talked about last month, I would just reiterate that there are, I think, 3,700 cars on Chartel a day, and 14 wrecks in a year seem like a lot to me. Robinson has, I think the staff's information was 1,900 cars on Robinson and 12 wrecks. That seems like a lot to me for residential streets. So I would just ask you to pass this. We passed the part on, there was a third element to this on Broadway, increasing the speed limit that you passed last month. So we'd like to finish this little package of limits by reducing those two on Chartel and Robinson to 25 miles an hour. Thank you very much for all your work.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else speaking on item 5C? Okay, staff?
Okay, as was noted earlier by the applicant, this item was, parts 1 and 2 of this item were continued from last month's meeting when it was originally a 3-part request. The third part was changing the speed limit on Broadway Avenue between 13th and 23rd Street, and that was a request to increase it from 30 to 35 miles an hour. That portion is approved, and and I believe signs have been installed on that. So at the last meeting, the commission voted to continue parts 1 and 2 pending further discussion on the disposition of school zone flashers, primarily on Chartel and on Robinson. So you've got the rest of our staff comments before you. In this particular case, there was a Public Works Department policy change that came out on the 29th of last month, and that was a decision made that in the event that the city reduces the regulatory limit on a street down to 25 miles an hour, by policy we will not remove school zone flashers, as a direct action. So at this point in time, action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission. As noted in the report, you will see that based on our analysis of both Chartel and Robinson, chances are the prevailing speeds are in the neighborhood of 30 miles an hour. The applicants requested a 5-mile-an-hour reduction to 25, so it'll be a discretionary action on the part of the commission. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
So can I have a motion concerning item 5C?
Mr. Chair, I move the application be approved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5C. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
The fact that they're going to leave the school zone flashers in place regardless of what action's taken here, still the speed data that you collected is still relevant, right?
I'm sorry, could you say that again, the last portion?
The speed data that you collected previously is still relevant, right?
Yes.
Regardless of where the school flashers were there.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, any other talk on item 5C? We have a motion to approve item 5C by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. All right, we go now to comments from citizens. Anybody want to talk? We got one. All right. Sir, if I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jeff Bezdek. I'm at 1015 North Broadway, Suite 120. I serve, just like you, at the behest of the Mayor and Council on the MAPS 3 Modern Streetcar System Committee. And hopefully I can do this in 5 minutes, but I would appreciate any feedback from your members, Chairman. We appreciate all of the changes that you've been proceeding with regarding signals in the downtown area. And as you know, no traffic control policy exists for the rail system blanket policy. We were concerned as citizens, and I've been working on this project for 10 years now. Our members have traveled all over the world and all over the United States looking at successful streetcar systems and non-successful streetcar systems, at least in the public perception. And a lot of that has to do with the train arriving on time. We are doing a fairly unusual system in Oklahoma City in that this is a battery hybrid technology. And therefore, the longer the trains are being used, the likelihood that the battery power and efficiency will decrease, that exponentially increases over time until the battery has to be replaced. The other unusual thing about our system is it is a looping type system, not a linear route. And as you know, with maps, sometimes this is an organic process, and between the citizens, the people who live and work downtown, and our public process, this route was conceived. With that, there are a number of turns in it. We have not been making our on-time arrivals in Bricktown. And the subcommittee 7 years ago was concerned that that might happen, that we might not start making our times. And there's a fear, and there is quite frankly, a rush to try to solve this problem by December when we have our opening. Now, as a volunteer such as yourself, our 10-person committee is committed to oftentimes butting heads with staff a bit, and I think there's a little bit of resistance to changing our traffic policies except in a case-by-case basis. These are high occupancy vehicles. They're carrying up to 108 passengers individually, and we have 7 of them, whereas single occupancy vehicles often only have 2 to 4 people in them. With that being said, I have come proactively because we are authoring a very simple policy that we'd like to float up to City Council, asking that these streetcars at all electronically controlled intersections have automated priority, only ceding to emergency vehicles. Of course, it would be at the operator's discretion, being Embark and the person driving the train, if stopping would be appropriate for pedestrians, situations on the line, otherwise. But again, no blanket policy exists, and we are afraid of putting the $150 million project at risk and damaging the MAPS brand, quite frankly, and not meeting the obligations that our citizens have asked us to meet. So I have a copy of the policy, but in short, it basically says no policy exists, and the policy that we'd like to float says traffic signals in contact with the City of Oklahoma City modern streetcar system shall automatically provide operational priority in the free flow movement to modern streetcar vehicles, ceding priority of free flow movement status only to emergency vehicles. In terms of pedestrians and bicycles, we are an enabler. The whole idea behind the streetcar system is to help resolve our parking needs downtown by distributing the parking load over a broader area and allowing more access to parking garages. But you can bring your bicycle on a streetcar, and obviously it's a pedestrian facilitator. Our meeting is at the end of this month, and I came proactively again to solicit any feedback that you might have or answer any questions. And out of respect to this body, it might even be more appropriate for this policy to come from this body, but I'd like to know.
All right. So I believe we can just have a talk about it, ask questions, ma'am?
You can have a talk about it, but no action, of course, can be taken.
So I think the first question I have, and I'll just start it off, is staff, is this a capability that's out there now that these streetcars could push a button and get a priority?
Technology is available to preempt control of traffic signals, to facilitate the movement, but its use at every location would not necessarily make any sense. Case in point, Broadway Avenue and Northwest 8th Street. New signal is going in there. However, that's also a streetcar stop. So to utilize preemption at a location like that doesn't necessarily mean it would necessarily be a benefit, because it would mean that the streetcar would be bypassing the stop. So there are going to be lots of locations where the streetcar will inherently stop, to pick up and discharge passengers. I don't know. I know that we've been working with Embark staff and the MAPS office as far as putting these, putting as many improvements in place as we can to facilitate movement. I know that the MAPS office is concerned about this, because I believe the original target time for the circulation was about 15 minutes, and they've been.
Our goal is between 12 and 15 minutes.
Okay, because they've been hitting, in some of the most recent tests, they've been hitting in the neighborhood of like 19 to 20 minutes. So obviously they're running slower than anticipated. However, like I said, the system is still in the process of being wrapped up.
And if you wouldn't mind me addressing the 8th Street, I would just simply counter that we're trying to also cover infrastructure costs in MAPS so that Embark doesn't have to later on. So one reason that we're trying to be proactive here is if no one is at the 8th Street stop, we want the signal to be intelligent and know that the streetcar isn't stopping there. We actually don't stop at every stop. We only stop if people are waiting at the stop. And then we're able to gain more time and dwell longer at a stop that there are fewer people at.
Okay, so let me roll back just a little bit here to refresh what we have. The downtown street signals, are they interconnected now?
We have the ability to communicate with them, yes. I mean, we can coordinate their operation, yes.
Right now.
To facilitate
That's a
traffic
capability.
flow. Yeah.
Okay. And are we doing that right now?
For most of the locations, yes, we are. For all of them, no, we are not.
So there's some basic timing that's set into the system, and then there's also, when there's overload of traffic, it overrides the basic timing and allows traffic to, that kind of stuff goes on.
The system that we use is more time-based coordination.
Okay.
And that's a function of offsetting the start of a green for the signals along a system, so that as a platoon of traffic moves through, you move from one intersection to the next in the predominant flow, in the, where traffic is heaviest, and that way allows us to coordinate the display of green, so you can move, you get as much throughput as you possibly can.
But that's what we have now?
Correct.
Okay, so let's start there. So we have that capability already going on there. So then we talked about fire department and those type of emergency vehicles. Do they have a signal thing that turns their light green now?
If our signals are equipped with, we use a preemption system that's manufactured, well, it used to be manufactured by 3M. It's commonly known as Opticom, and not every signal in the city is equipped with preemption not every fire vehicle, I believe, is equipped with a preemption emitter, but not every signal is equipped with a preemption receiver.
So it's kind of hit and miss right now.
Right, and I know that the MAPS office is looking at utilizing a GPS-based form of preemption that would allow signals to be preempted to facilitate movement of the streetcar.
Well, for the streetcar, but for emergency vehicles, some of our emergency vehicles have that capability at some intersections.
I think just about every fire vehicle has that capability already. Fire vehicles are the only ones. I mean, police, ambulance, they don't have the ability to preempt signals.
Fire vehicles have that and
Right,
I'm sure
but
they know which intersections tie in and all that. Maybe. Okay. So we have that capability down in Bricktown and in the Loop area. Okay? So now, would that same technology kind of thing be used with the streetcar where it would automatically read it and say, okay, here comes the streetcar, I got to turn it, or is it a push button, or is it something that kind of happens?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify a little more too, we recently, I'd say a month ago, appropriated $950,000 out of our Map Street budget to install some of the equipment you're describing on a fair number of the signals, but not all of them. And so the technology is there, but on the front end to talk to the traffic signal, whether or not the equipment in the signal cabinet itself can work intelligently is questionable on site to site. And so our goal with this policy is to say, well, we're, let's say, 2/3 of the way there. We'd simply like to implement it on all of them, take care of the infrastructure cost so that Embark doesn't have to come up with this money later on. And then it's at the discretion of the operator of the system whether or not how much to use it. But in terms of if there are challenges, it's easier to roll it back than it is to open it up.
So is it a turn off, turn on, or always on thing, kind of thing?
It's an intelligent programming. So we're paying to have the city's server updated with a automatic algorithm and new software to try to make this intelligent. And then if the cabinets are improved to receive commands, then we're in a position where Stewart and Embark has a lot more flexibility. But what we'd hate to do is not have a policy that says, well, you know, we're not meeting our times and we haven't done everything that we can do.
And this was talked about last meeting, I believe. We had a small talk about this. I remember something about it, I think.
Yeah, but you know, overall, whether or not the commission enacts a policy or something like that, that's really an internal city function. I mean, Public Works working with Embark can work cooperatively to come up with a solution that works the best for this. Now, whether or not the commission wants to enact a policy,
So
I'm not sure if that would necessarily have any meaningful benefit. I mean, because it's in traffic management aspect of public works, we do our best to facilitate as much throughput at intersections in as safe a manner as is possible, and doing something which is going to, incur additional delays to like the streetcar or something like that. That's not necessarily in keeping with what we do. We try to move as much.
So what you're saying is his thoughts and his concerns are a staff function to do what's best for traffic flow of all the vehicles that are out there.
That's correct.
Not a traffic commission set a rule.
That's correct.
Now, but you're saying we could do a resolution to the city council saying we would support the concept that we don't want to waste $20 million and not have a streetcar system.
Yeah, I think our concern is that it is up to someone who we don't know. Well, I don't know who they are. I don't know who's programming this, but what we've seen in other cities, Atlanta's a great example, is if there's no policy that says streetcars carrying 108 people, it should have high occupancy vehicle priority over everything else except for emergency vehicles. Without a policy in place, you're asking for intra-departmental cooperation, which may or may not happen quickly.
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're looking for is somebody to make that call in writing. So when you're spending this $950,000 to buy the basic infrastructure of this concept, it could get implemented. And somebody won't say, well, no, I want all traffic to be the same. This counts the same.
That's correct.
You want something up front.
Yes, sir.
And so the question, and it may not be just to you as traffic management, it may be to somebody higher up, whether it's city council or the city manager's office, somebody saying that.
If this body did vote on something simple like this and said, we understand this is just common sense, it's for the greater public good, we're spending this money, we want it to be equitable and functional, and it comes from our committee and from the MAPS Oversight Board, and everyone says this is a common sense policy derivative, then, I mean, ultimately, I think it would go to City Council for ratification.
Right, so the city manager could just say in a note what you just said, this is what I want.
That's correct.
And then if he did that, then you would feel comfortable spending that money and making it happen because you would know he would make it happen. If you felt that the city councilmen need to say it, then of course it would go to city council to give that guidance to the city manager. You just want somebody to say, it's okay, and this is what we want. Is that what you're looking for?
To create a hierarchy in
Yes.
traffic control, yes.
So
There's no hierarchy right now. It's just how to deal with congestion.
So unless anybody have any other questions, and I'll open it up, but I think what we're going to take out of this is Stewart's heard it, council in office has heard it. They would go back to the staff leadership to determine what's best.
Sure.
And if you all really need us to do something and the staff feels that we need to say something, then it would be brought up next month.
And I can go back to our committee and say, I took any feedback that you might have,
Sure.
and the Traffic Commission wants us to vote on forwarding this to you, and we can do so.
No, I'm not saying we want that. What I think we would want is for the city staff to work with the MAPS 3 project to make sure what has to happen happens that everybody wants, and what is the best avenue to make that happen. And if it is the Traffic Commission's role to get that started, well, then the staff would present us with something that we would actually talk about and vote on.
Understood.
Is that kind of, and staff, does that kind of fall right in?
And I would presume that also one of your members could also put it forth to be voted on as well.
Well, it would have to be on the agenda.
Understood.
So like, as the staff just gave me, just to make sure it's clear, if you want a policy from the Traffic Commission, then the MAPS office would need to write a policy, which you kind of have a draft of.
Yes.
That would be sent to the staff for inclusion in our next month's agenda.
Understood.
So that's how it would kind of work from this information. So I had my questions. Now let's go ahead and go, and you want it first, sir.
Thank you so much. At first blush, I guess I kind of thought that was already going to be in the works, that they were going to have right away. So a couple of things. One, other cities that have kind of a similar downtown looping system like we're going to have, like Denver, for instance, is theirs set up that way where they have right away? How would that compare with other cities that are doing that?
Well, I can tell you, I have not traveled internationally like some of our committee members have, but my experiences are that the successful systems, and I've actually ridden in the train cab and seen it work, and been in the train cabs where it didn't work.
Right.
And
where has it worked?
Well, a good example of what we were talking about, Opticom being deployed, is Tacoma. So that sets up a automatic sequence. The technology in the last couple of years has only become available to make it completely intelligent, where it's making real-time decisions.
And those are all, that's Tacoma is a low-speed, not a high-speed rail system that's moving people in and out of the city.
That's correct. It's 40
just
miles an hour.
Downtown, 10, 12. How fast are these trains around going to go for us?
They can go up to 40 miles an hour.
Generally, they'll be
Generally, they're at traffic speeds.
Okay.
So,
20.
yes. Where we've seen it not work is Atlanta, a great example where it isn't working. And you are correct, Mr. George. When the campaign was launched 10 years ago for MAPS, we answered the question about the public about how it would move and interact with traffic and be a functional form of mass transit. And during that campaign, we actually told the people that, yes, it would have this automatic signal system.
Okay. Then as far as the timing, and you say you're running late, it's going to, I can see where it can become negative if people are waiting longer than they should. But are all 7 trains going to be running at once?
We'll typically have 6 running.
6?
So we'll have 4 on the D line.
If you wanted a 12 to 15 minute loop, and you're going at 20 minutes or thereabouts, so you're basically wanting a 2-minute wait for people. There's going to be a train every 2 minutes if you're on time. And then if you're not on time, now it's going to be 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes?
Well, we have
it's still going to be pretty tight.
2 different lines. We have a B line and a D line. And so actually the wait between trains right now is optimally 12 to 15 minutes between trains. That's what we're shooting for. And that's why automation is so critical. So if we wait longer.
So it's not 12 to 15 minutes for a loop. You're saying 12 to 15 minutes for a train at a stop.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that is a big difference.
The length of the route takes approximately, it's a lot bigger than people realize. I mean, we're talking about a 40-minute circuit under optimal conditions. So if you factor that there may be people waiting at a stop, more people at one stop than another stop, if a wheelchair is involved, bicycles, dogs, things like that, you start, and then we have this battery problem, because they didn't want overhead wires in the downtown core, so we went with a hybrid system. So again, my goal here is, okay, we established this is a high occupancy vehicle, it has a preference over automobiles when at intersections, and then we're setting embark up for a long-term successful scenario despite what may happen. Right now we're stretching to try to make it work, and it's not working.
The hybrid system, the combustible engine, what is that running on?
So it's Tesla-type car batteries and
So
overhead
just plug 'em
electric
in?
wire.
There's no engine.
No engine. They're completely silent.
They're not really hybrid, and they're electric.
They are all
They're
electric. When I say hybrid, I mean that when they are recharging, the pantograph, which is the device on the roof of the train, is touching a wire that's putting out 750 volts DC, and that is recharging the batteries. And the areas that we are not on wire are from the National Memorial down to Bricktown on Robinson and around the Devon Tower and the new park.
Okay, you all done, Mr. George? All right, Commissioner.
I just have a question. How about what's the detriment to the road user than the delay or level of service for this preemption system, or is this an attempt to maximize or make it as most efficient as you can?
Well, if the smart commuter is behind a train, then they'll miss all the lights. But of course, they'll have to stop at the stops too. So our consultants believe that it's essentially a wash. So if you're behind a train, you're probably going to make it through the light if the automation's deployed. If you stay behind the train, you're going to end up stopping behind it at a stop. So
could be some delay there, however.
You could gain time, you could lose time. It is totally a wash.
Okay. Mr. Shalai, no, nothing? Commissioner Milner, do you have anything for me?
I just have one question, just to be clear. When you guys are doing these test runs,
Yes,
your timing,
yes.
are you setting that up as scenarios of people getting on and off?
Yes.
Okay.
We're doing all
I
sorts
think you
of
mentioned, I
scenarios.
just didn't catch it. So.
So again, we haven't had trains in Oklahoma City in, I believe, 71 years, or streetcars. And we are actually running tests throughout the day at peak load times, high congestion, low congestion, simulating people getting on and off, and also simulating battery issues. And that's why we're, as Stuart mentioned, we're around 19, 20 minutes instead of our target.
And that's time, that's if I'm at a stop and I just missed the train, it's the goal that the next one will be there in 15 minutes.
12 to 15 minutes.
12 to 15 minutes, not 18 to 20 minutes.
That's right.
Okay, I follow you.
Okay.
I should know this, and I don't. I'm curious, how does the bus system maintain its schedule, or do they have a schedule?
Pure luck.
Pure luck.
So there has been some discussion about similar deployment on intense corridors like Classen, for example, where you have a commuter environment and the bus be factored into this. As far as the streetcar system is concerned, we actually designed our platforms in the downtown area. I don't know if you recall this, but many of the buses going to the transit center would actually have stops throughout downtown. And so we designed our stops to where a bus can stop there too, as well as a streetcar on its way to the transit center. But, in theory, there will be another maps, and assuming this is a successful project, then extensions will occur out of the downtown core. The whole idea in the master plan for the system is that commuter trains coming from Edmond and Norman to downtown, this would be your way to get to your office, to your home, your last mile connector, essentially. So there would be a transfer involved. There are certain corridors that lend themselves to expansion, and buses could do something very similar too.
I ask that because I'm going to be delicate. I ask that because I believe that the definition of the light rail system being HOV, high occupancy vehicle, would seem to me that the same category would apply to our bus system. And I would think that any policy that we could ever consider to look at someday should have some way to compensate for including them as well, or we're going to be having citizens that are going to be focusing on this attention to a downtown light rail system and ignoring a very important surface bus system. That's why I'm curious.
And Mr. Littlefield, we are paying for the upgrade to the server for the city. So in theory, this would be kind of proving grounds for wider adoption of such a system. And I would encourage, of course, I'm a public transit advocate, I believe in it, but in the future maps, the infrastructure, because the buses would have to actually talk to the computer, the infrastructure be considered to be deployed and voted on by the people. One reason why I'm here today is we actually told the people we were going to do this, and we're only doing it piecemeal. So that's one reason for this resolution.
So just luck isn't going to work out. We want to pick up that 4 or 5 minutes in the schedule on the light rail.
Yeah, and imagine what it will do for making people consider public transit an efficient alternative to the automobile. I must confess to you, 10 years ago, I did not conceive that we would have electric scooters downtown. We would not have Uber or Lyft. And the other major factor in this is the streetcar also has to be competitive with these new modes.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
What is pricing going to be?
$1.
$1
Yes.
per ride or all day? Is
Was
it an
it a
all-day
2-hour?
deal?
Yes, it's for a window, and then you can get a day pass. I think the day pass is $3, and it's transferable between bus and streetcar.
Right.
Thanks.
I have copies of this for the record. It's just a draft of the resolution and a little background. And I really appreciate your time today. Any other feedback, I'll gladly take back to our subcommittee.
And sir, if you could go ahead and just pass that right here. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else on item 6, citizens from comments?
No.
Okay. Now we go to item 7, reports and other items. Let's go on now to Commissioner Clare.
Nothing to report?
Commissioner Littlefield.
I'll be quick.
Yes, sir.
I'm very curious about, and I think I saw it on Facebook, I don't remember the name of the neighborhood, Classington Penn maybe, would the city council approve for them painting decorative murals in their intersections within their neighborhood? I just think that's just awesome. And I would think it would be interesting to find out what kind of maybe traffic calming effect those might have. Comment.
Okay. Sir?
Nothing.
Sir? We'll go around this.
Nothing.
Okay. Sir? Sir? Sir?
Or accidents they cause. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, or accident impact, because they're all looking at the murals.
If you're calm, you won't have an accident.
That's right, there you go. The only thing, speaking of traffic calming, could we get a little movement on speed hump bumps? What a 25-mile-an-hour hump bump would look like?
Yeah, as time permits, we're going through and we're gathering. Actually, we've been in contact with a manufacturer that produces a modular speed cushion, which is a variant of a speed hump. It's kind of like a speed hump that's got two wheel pass-throughs for it, and it's really set up for like a wide wheelbase vehicle, like a fire engine or something along that line. So it doesn't necessarily inhibit their ability to reach an emergency if needed. Like I said, we've been dealing with one vendor, and we're trying to find local examples where we might be able to go and take a look at some of these, or maybe potentially throw out the opportunity to a neighborhood that might be interested in becoming like a test bed for it.
Well, but at least have something started of what something might look like and what the process would actually be and what the cost would be. Just something that when we finally get the next one to come up, we can say, here's something that's pretty close, when we're almost there or something. Mm-hmm. So if we could work on that a little bit. Okay. Captain?
You have nothing.
Okay. Counselor, anything else?
I don't have anything, but I wondered if there were any more of the draft policies. I don't think this side got any.
Oh, here they come.
Okay.
Okay. Staff, do you have anything?
Aside from our monthly report on administrative traffic and parking controls, I have nothing further to add.
Okay, does anybody else have any business?
Well,
we do have one.
Quick thing,
Yes,
on the
Dennis.
streetcars, I guess I would urge you to get that application in to the staff and to Stuart so they can start studying it and we need his opinion big time on what the traffic department thinks about whether or not this should go forward. So if you file this tomorrow or today, then he can start doing our due diligence for us.
Well, I think the opinion is that they want to do it on a case-by-case basis, and the subcommittee disagrees.
Case by case as an intersection by intersection?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we actually have a differing point of view between staff. So that's one reason that the citizen committee is pushing this forward.
Gotcha. I'd still file it.
Well, it's filed.
There
It's
you
part
go.
of your record. Thank you.
All right, anybody else have business? All right, stand adjourned.